Hey everybody, Dave here again, and today I want to talk about Microsoft PAL. This is an acronym that stands for Partner Admin Link, and it's a program for Microsoft specifically for those of you that are Microsoft partners. That being said, those of you that are not Microsoft partners or have no interest in becoming a Microsoft partner, then this video more than likely is not for you, but I do encourage everybody to continue to watch. As who knows, maybe you'll learn something and maybe you'll go to work for a company one day where you'll be confronted with this, and this will give you a little bit of prerequisite knowledge or give you some knowledge on how to potentially implement PAL for the company that you might be working for. All right, so with that being said, let's kind of get started and dig into this here. And to begin with today's topics, we want to talk a little bit about what PAL is. We don't want to give you the sales pitch version of it, but just enough to at least understand what it is and what its purpose is. Then we want to talk about the authentication approaches, and there is a suggested approach that I want to give everybody, and I also want to go on record and remind everybody that this is my opinion. This by no means is the way that is going to work for every situation and everybody, but I do feel that this approach will reach the majority of folks, and the purpose here, or the goal in doing this approach, is to give you the easiest way to implement PAL with the most effective and efficient way possible and reduce friction potentially with clients in helping them to understand what PAL is, the benefits to them, and for you, obviously, as a Microsoft partner. So then we want to talk a little bit about how do you kind of do this PAL association, which is part of the implementation plan, okay? And so there's two ways of doing it, essentially, and we'll get into the specifics a little bit further down the road here, but essentially there's the graphical user interface version of it. This is the portal, or Azure portal rather, and then there's the, the codey, geeky way that you can do in a command line interface with PowerShell. And then the second part, or the secret to the sauce in making this work, is after you do this, what's called a PAL association, you need to make sure that this authentication mechanism, or object, I guess you could call it, is in fact the owner of the assets that you produce for your clients. And so these two magical components together, A, the PAL association, and then that entity that has that association, as long as it's the owner of the output or the deliverable that you give to the customer, this will help flag Microsoft and let them know that, hey, this is an asset that you help deliver to your customer. And then there's also the same methodology here when you're talking about the Power Platform and Dynamics 365. So ownership of objects are really in two different zones or two different areas, obviously, like I explained here on screen, in Azure, as well as Power Platform and Dynamics 365. Then we'll try to end the video here with some bonus or PowerShell scripts for some of the more fringe use cases that may be. If you're in, or dealing with a lot of Fortune 100 companies, then this might not be so fringe. This may very well apply to you, and so those bonus PowerShell scripts will help you out tremendously. Because this is the more complicated way to approach PAL from an implementation standpoint. So these scripts will be a great accelerator for you. That being said, let's dig in. I've pretty much almost told you what PAL is, but the quick one-liner or elevator pitch is that PAL, again, acronym for Partner Admin Link, it's very similar to Partner of Record and other programs that Microsoft has had in the past. But it's a catalyst or a key way of having Microsoft identify and recognize you as a partner and the work that you've done inside of your customers' accounts. And, the goal here is to achieve their business objectives and to give them an outcome that is satisfactory in what they're looking for. And this is all centered around the Microsoft Cloud. So, again, to implement PAL, it's two parts. There's an authentication account, and this is associated with what's called your Microsoft Partner Network ID, or MPN ID. It's also known as a PAL association that we talked about a little bit earlier. And then again, we talked about it needing to be the owner of the objects in Azure, Power Platform. And so in Power Platform, you have this concept called an environment. And on the Azure side, it's, kind of its boundaries is called a tenant or a subscription, or subscriptions are under tenants. But in any event, there's different areas that this can apply to. And so when we start talking about, authentication approaches and suggested approaches, it really starts with the link. You got to do this PAL association. And to do this PAL association, you need to use the partner's location MPN ID. Okay, so this is a little bit more specific than I talked about earlier on the previous slide. There's a difference between the location ID and the global ID. Okay, so I'm going to show you over in my partner center. Now, my partner center is just a lab. I don't use it for production purposes, so I'm actually okay showing you the information here. So let me pull this up. So here's, my partner center, and I'm going to go under the gear, and I'm going to go under account settings. So this is what you're going to do under your partner center. And if you come down here under organizational profile, you click on identifier, and some of the stuff I'll have blurred out on the screen so that you can't see all of it, and I will protect the master partner ID. But up here on the top, Microsoft Cloud Partner Program, you'll have your partner IDs listed here, and then, of course, your locations. Now, I have a location that I specifically dedicated towards the PAL program, and I'm using this partner ID. This is my MPN ID, okay? The one here that's hidden under this area, okay, this is the global, and this is the global one. This is the one you should never give out. So this is between you and Microsoft, and it should never be considered a public ID. But the other ones that are location, these MPN IDs, you can go ahead and use. It's up to you to determine how you do it. If you're a one-man band like I would be here, it's the same location, but it's essentially, I'm just designating one specific MPN ID for the PAL program. You could do the same, or you could have, if you got different people implementing projects in different locations because you have a multinational or just global company, or even multiple areas within the United States, and you do different locations there, you can set them up that way. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's really just however you want to structure your business. So this is how I did it for this example. The key or the takeaway though is, again, don't use the global in any of this. Only use your locations, and every time you set up a new partnership, you have to establish at least minimally one location. So if I didn't get creative and create the second one, then you would just go ahead and use the default, again, for the location, not the global. All right, so I beat that horse to death. Now let's talk about the different types or different mechanisms to go ahead and do this. All right, so in Office 365 and Azure, you have this concept of user accounts, okay? And as the user, this is what you would tie the MPN ID number to, right? You could, use your login ID, you tie it to the user. Now, this is not recommended, but as of the date of this recording, in all of the Microsoft documentation, at least that's online that I can find, the user account seems to be the mechanism or the method in which they suggest to do this. I personally disagree, because if you're the one implementing this, and I have seen this work, that's very hard to do. What you can do is use a user account, but have a specific intention of using it as a service account. You see, this will require only one account to be tracked and created and used, and that account can have access to the production system. You see, the problem with doing every single user that you have in your customer's account, chances are you have let's just use a use case or an example. You've got 50 people that is in a big, large company. Let's just say you're working for a Fortune 100 company, and you're as a partner, you have maybe 50 employees dedicated towards that account. Out of those 50 people, maybe only 3 to 5 of them, at best, have access to the production systems, which means the lion's share of those users will never have access to production. You see, the way that this whole program works, it's about delivering deliverables into a production environment, and then the flagging and implementing of this PAL. So if you've got the lion's share of your users not even having access to the production environments, it makes zero sense for you and your customer to go through and do these PAL associations on each and every one of those accounts. Also, at the date of this recording, there's no management facility for partners by Microsoft to manage the people that are in the account, which means you have no governance, you have no oversight, you have no visibility. You literally have to go to each one of your employees, stand over their shoulder, watch them log in, and verify that they've done the steps that they need to do. And that's a lot of work. That creates a lot of friction for not only you in implementing the program, but also for your customers to add all of these accounts and all of these PAL associations as well if you ask them to get involved with it. So the easiest and most simple approach, and this is why it's recommended, or at least I'm recommending it rather, is that a service account gives you one single account. Now you could do multiple, but that gets into a whole other ball of wax. You really only need one service account. It'll have access to production. You do the PAL association on this one account. Make sure that that service account is the owner of the object in either the Power Platform, in Dynamics 365, and or on the side of Azure. And so I'm going to show you how to do each one of these, and we're going to get into all of that. The third and final component piece or possibility here is what's called a service principal. This is a unique object in Azure, and so if you're familiar with it, great. If not, this is the more esoteric part. This is part of the bonus script, but there's really only a very specific use case for this. And it's mostly on the Dynamics 365 and Power Platform side. There's a concept of solutions, and there's some application lifecycle management called ALM, as another acronym for short. And it usually has some component or tie-in possibly with DevOps or Power Automate for the purposes of automating as much of this as you can. And when you have a ALM process or automation in conjunction with policies and procedures at the organizational level that says user accounts must be multi-factor authentication or MFA, it becomes a problem for automation because you can't use these accounts because it'll just break. The automation will never happen. It'll try to authenticate. It'll do so successfully with the password, but it'll be waiting and waiting and waiting for this MFA to get approved. And because it's a robot, there's no automation or way to do that. And so this is where service principal comes in. It's a special object in Azure that has you do that. Again, this is the bonus script that towards the end of the video. It's neither recommended nor not recommended, but it's a very specific use case, and this is it, as to why you'd need to or want to use a service principal. All right, that being said, now we're going to talk about doing performing a PAL association. So before we get into the specifics of how to, I want to just go through, at least for those of you that may not be familiar at all whatsoever, I want to go ahead and log into my admin center for my Office 365 tenant. And again, there's nothing special here. This is just my lab. So there's nothing much to see here. I think I got another service account, which I called app user, and then just myself. So a service account or a user account is the same. And I'm going to show you, you're going to create one or the other the same way. The only difference is the attention and how you intend to use it. And it's not bound to a human being. And that's the beautiful part. So David Soden might leave, but guess what? The service account is not a person. It's neither going to leave nor not leave. It'll persist, and that's why the service account is so much better. So first name, we'll call this service demo. We'll do service demo account. Username, SD. Actually, let's do this. Let's use good naming convention. We'll do underscore SVC. And then let's do another underscore, MPNID. And actually, I didn't write that down. Let's do Partner Center. Let's go back to Partner Center. Click on the cog, click on account settings, go to identity, or identifiers. And I need this one. So I'll copy this out. And I'll make this as part of the login ID. Now, the nice, beautiful part about this is if you get in the habit of using, say, some standardization of practice like this and talk to your customers about it, if you're the first partner in there to recommend this, this really, really helps your customer identify other partners. And this is the beautiful part about PAL, because PAL allows you to have multiple partners inside of a tenancy. And so the only difference is that they can't, two partners can't try to own the same object at the same time. If they try to do that, then the latest or the last partner to try to take ownership, they'll win. They can actually steal your credits or your mal credits on objects. So you do want to keep a hold of that, or keep that in mind, because if you're getting credit for stuff you've delivered and then magically 1 month you're not getting credits anymore, something may have happened in the account where either the PAL association broke or another partner came in and took ownership of that object, which means now they're getting the credit for the work that you delivered. But that's the thing. It's like a blessing and a curse, or a double-edged sword. The blessing is multiple partners can be in the same account. The curse is multiple partners can be in the same account and they can both try to own the same object, at which point it may be justified, because if you're a new partner coming in to replace a previous partner and you're going to work on that asset, then you probably need to get credit for it because now you're taking it over. But anyway, I'm talking a little bit too much here, so let's just go ahead and change this out to do something really weak. We'll do demo 1, 2, 3. Let's see here. We don't need that. 4. Well, here. I guess I got to do a real password. All right. Yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll save that out. I will assign a license, because you are going to need to assign a license to a service account, because just like any other user, they need to have access to the services, and you're going to need to log into those services interactively on behalf of or as that individual user, which is not an actual person. It is in fact a service account. So that being said, we'll set that all up. This is all done. Actually, I think I left the tick mark on. Yeah, I don't want to do that. Okay. I don't want the user to have to change the password when they log in. So let's make sure the license is still there. Okay, so this is all said and done. Now I'll have this ready to go. Okay, cool. All right, so now what I need to do is I need to log into Azure as that service account. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this PAL association. So this is the graphical user interface. We just showed you how to create a service account, again, just like a user account. Now we're going to go into the portal, or Azure portal, and I'm going to log in as that service account. So let's get rid of this one, forget, add another account, and I've already forgotten who this individual was. What's the login ID? This is it right here. Copy, paste. Okay, what did I do wrong? Everything looks right. Thought I did. Let's go and reset the password. Okay, there we go. All right. I do have multi-factor authentication as a requirement on this domain, so that means I'm going to have to use my MFA to get in, and this will be a good use case example of how you can still have MFA, but the MFA is going to prevent other people from getting in. This is an extra layer of security. But if you try to use this in automation, this is not going to work for you, okay? So if you're starting to use Azure DevOps, of course I'm trying to type the code, 23387, and talk to you guys at the same time. That wasn't working too well for me. It's like you can't chew bubblegum and talk at the same time. All right, so that is now in. I've verified, all of that's done. So I've now logged in for the first time with a brand new, fresh new account with multi-factor authentication turned on and enabled. So the good news is that they, meaning the customer, can set it up with your phone number or your cell phone or some whatever you want to use to get the authentication, or they can leave it in theirs, and they will only allow you to log in when they know you're going to log in, or maybe they're on the phone, and then they can use their mobile device to approve the authorization and login. But the point is, this will help people from getting into the account or accessing a production environment without explicit knowledge. So this is all good security measures, but there's lots of creative ways to do it. Obviously, this part is all outside of PAL on how you do this technical implementation piece. The only thing that's really the requirement is doing the PAL association, which I'm about to show you, and still haven't yet, and then needing to make sure that there's ownership. Okay, so all of this is really just the prerequisite work behind the scenes. And so this is the reason for the video, because there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of steps. All right, so I have now logged into the portal. If I try to go look at some of the resources that's up here, I can come up here, I might click on all resources. I don't have access to anything because I don't have a subscription, and I haven't been granted rights to use any of the subscriptions. So that doesn't mean the account is invalid. That means that I can log into Azure, but that's about all I can do. But you can do a PAL association. Now here's how you do it. Once you've logged in, as you've seen that I've done, with or without multi-factor authentication, depending on how you're set up, once you're in, you'll get to this screen that I'm here now. Go ahead and click on the cog, and when you click on the cog, there's this section in the lower left corner about useful links. The useful link that you're looking for is the Microsoft Partner Network, and this is what you want to click in. And once again, I have already removed the ID that I need. All I need to do is use that MPN ID here in this screen, and then just click it to link to the partner ID. And you can now see that David Soden is the partner, and the reason it reads as David Soden is because of the way that I have it set up in the back end of the Partner Center. You see the company name, the location company name. This name for the global is what is going to be displayed in Azure for all of the identification. So if I had something crazy like Foo Schnickens Incorporated or something, right, then it would read over here as just that, Foo Schnickens Incorporated, with the, this MPN ID number. Now to remove the PAL association, all you do is you click the trash can and hit delete. And it's as simple as that. So again, when you log into the Azure portal, you get again into the home screen. You'll come here, you click on the cog, you go down to this little corner, useful link, Microsoft Partner Network, and that's how you get to this screen. From here you can add and remove, and that's it. Okay, so you only need to do the one PAL association for this service account. Now let me digress a second. Outside of the recommendation, based on how Microsoft said, this is what every user that you have in the user account on your customer's account, this is what they have to do, the same step. And there's no governance around this. There's no management. There's no visibility on this. You literally, like I said, you have to shadow them, watch them do these steps, or at least let them log in to see that it reads. And if you see that there's nothing here like it is right now, then you're going to have to watch them pop in a number, and you need to make sure that your current partner is, in fact, your company. Okay, so this is the really hard part about governance and compliance within your company for the PAL program. And if you choose the regular user route, not do the service account route, you're really in for a kind of a management nightmare to have to manage all of this and all of these different accounts and who's in it, and then people come and go because the employee churn and turnover. It's not very fun. All right, so that being said, I'm going to leave this window up. I'm going to pull up in a new window, which is the Microsoft PowerShell ISE window. Okay. And so a couple of things. We're going to use this module in Azure called AZ. And the first thing that we need to do here is we're going to use PowerShell to do this essentially this PAL association. So this is part of the, we already went through the Azure portal GUI right here. And so now we're into the part where we're going to deal with the PowerShell. Now the first thing that we need to do is connect to the Azure platform of the Azure services. And you do that by typing connect -AZ account. Okay, so that's all you have to do. Just connect AZ account, hit enter, and what you want to make sure that you're doing is you're logging in as this service account. So this one's not going to work. I don't need this one. Matter of fact, I'm going to have to go 3 steps back to go 1 step forward, so I do apologize. I need to make sure I get the right account that I'm logging in here as. Another account. Let's do this. Oh, shoot. Try this again. Okay. And I will have the MFA pop up once again, unfortunately. And the code will come through here in just a moment. 856554. And lo and behold, bada bing, bada boom, I'm in. Okay, so this is the same. I've now logged in. Now you have some very specific command or commandlets that you're going to run. The first one I'm going to run is the get. So I'm going to get AZ managing partner, I believe it is. M-A-N-A-G. There we go. AZ management partner. Sorry. Glad I used the IntelliSense. See, this definitely helps. Okay, so I'm going to get it. I'm going to hit enter. Oh, there it is. I do have a partner. So I don't have to do a PAL association because I already have a partner. Now, remember I told you I was going to leave that other previous screen up. So let's go back to this. This is the Azure GUI way of doing it, okay? I'm going to delete it now. I'm going to delete it from the GUI. Now I'm going to go back to PowerShell. I'm going to rerun that command that I just ran. And watch what happens. You get an error, but this is a good error. This is what you want to see because this lets you know that you need to do a PAL association. And this is the key or the crux of that message. It just says the user or the service principal is not linked with a partner ID. That means there's no PAL association. So now what you have to do is, if you're going to do this in PowerShell, this is how you'll do it. I'm going to go ahead and type in CLS to clear the screen. And we're going to do new-AZ management partner dash, where you do a space then a dash, IntelliSense will kick in. And again, you only get the IntelliSense if you're over here in the PowerShell ISE. So I'm going to use that here, and now I just need to use the partner ID. Unfortunately, I'll have to go back over to here because I have a hard time remembering what it is. So we'll come back over here. We'll list that in, and now we've got it. Now I'll rerun that previous command of get to verify that it truly is there, and it is. So again, now if I want to remove that, you just use the verb remove AZ management partner. You'll have to provide the partner ID again, and you run it this way. And so now when I run that and I rerun the get, I'll get that error that says, hey, guess what? You don't have it done. So I'm going to rerun the new command to put it back. And now you can see I can get it and it's verified there. All right, so that's it for this segment of the video. In the next portion, we're going to start talking about Azure, the ownership, and we'll get into that in the very next section here. Give me just a moment. Okay guys, so here we are now on the Azure portal again, and I have to log in. So I can log in as the service account, but if I do, I don't have access to anything. So I'm going to have to log in with somebody who has some administrative rights over it, and unfortunately for my very, very small network, it's just going to be me. So I'm going to log back in as me so I have access to all of the different services that I have. So I don't want to get into Azure and how to use Azure, but I will give enough of a prerequisite information or explanation to help you make sense of this. Being the fact that you are potentially a Microsoft partner watching this video, my hope for you is that this already makes perfect sense to you. Otherwise, you will definitely be behind the 8 ball, and your customers may be very frustrated with you if you don't have at least very basic knowledge of the cloud platforms. So with that being said, Azure at the highest level, it's all about subscriptions, because everything that you try to do or everything that you try to use, you have to pay for it. And you pay for it with a subscription. And it's usually bound to a credit card or some form or method of payment. And so then the next layer down, and this isn't definitive. This is where it starts to get maybe a little bit gray, because everybody will do different different implementations. Like they may have multi-tenants, they may do multiple subscriptions within a tenant. Anyway, so that gets just really crazy, right? So I'm just, again, covering or skimming the basics. So if we look at resource groups, I would suggest, and this is my recommendation, I would use, if you can get away with it, using a special resource group for your partnership deliverables. The reason for that is that with the resource group, matter of fact, I don't know if I can do this on the fly. I'll just try to create a resource group here. Let's do npn underscore test. Can I use underscores? Yeah. Okay, good. Next. Yeah, we don't need any of that. Review and create. We don't need any of that. We'll do create. All right. So now I have a resource group called npn test. I'm going to go drill into this, and I'm going to go into the access IAM control. Okay. So this will help illustrate A best practice, and B, it will also show you how to do a role assignment, which is the ownership. So remember I told you PAL association was the first step, and then in Azure, under the subscriptions or the tenants, you need to also be the owner of an object that you're going to deliver into Azure. And so, again, I hope to illustrate how to give somebody ownership. Specifically, we're going to give ownership of that service account to this resource group. And then anything we put inside of the resource group, it then also should be the owner, which will make much less work for you down the road, because you have to ensure that anything you deliver, that your MPN ID is associated with the account, that PAL association. And once that's happening, then you need to make sure that you're the owner. And so just by you being the owner of the resource group through inheritance, anything you put into this bucket, you should also retain ownership for that service account. Okay, so two birds, one stone, so to speak. So under role assignments, what I want to do is I want to add another role assignment, because right now I'm the system administrator and nobody else has ownership role. So we want to click add, and we want to do a role assignment, and we want to do it on the owner role. And then we click next, and we need to add the service account to this. So we'll start off by doing an underscore, give it a second to resolve. There's our service account. We'll click select. And now our service account is there. I can click next again and then review and assign. A couple seconds later, 1, 2, 3, then we now have the service account in adjacent to my name. So now both of us, the service account and me personally, and by the way, they're both user accounts because you can see this under type user. So perfect illustration that user accounts and service accounts are actually all the same. They're all user accounts, but the intention behind how to use it are different. All right, so now anything I put inside of this MPN test ID bucket, I now will become the owner. So let's just pop out here real quick. I don't know, let's pick something that maybe won't be so detrimental to anything that I have floating around here. Let's do this key vault piece here. All right, so under key vault, let's see what we got here. Let's do, where is, see here. I'm trying, here we go, resource group, move. All right, so I want to get it out of this resource group. And actually, I don't want to do this. This is my backup. That way, if something does go wrong, I don't make a monkey mess out of it. What's this one? Storage account. Yeah, this will be good. So let's move this storage account. So we're going to move it from here to, I thought it gave me an opportunity to change. There we go. So I want to move it into this resource group. Okay. And lo and behold, I don't know why it's pending validation. I may have to pause the video. We were here before. It says checking on whether the resources can be moved. I'm going to pause the video just a quick moment. All right, so that really was taking a long time. I'm just going to go ahead and create a brand new storage account, and then we'll just go ahead and circle back and delete it. So here is the resource group. Again, we're going to choose MPN ID test, storage account name, PN. We'll just call it delete. Account name is already taken. Okay, 0. Okay, that looks good. Blah, 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 blah. Standard, that's good. We're just going to kill this thing anyway. Networking, yeah, fine. Whatever, whatever, whatever. Great. And we'll pause. All right, so here we are back with all the resources, and they've been created. And down here somewhere, I had an eye on it, lost it. Here we go. Delete me 565, which is a storage account under this resource group. So I'll click on this. And so now if we try to figure out ownership of this storage account object, and actually that's not in the regular place. Here we go. IAM, role assignments, and here we go. You see that? I'm the tenant administrator. I went ahead and I'm the one that created it. But because the service account was also the owner of the resource group, it automatically through inheritance makes that service account the owner of the object. Okay, so that's the second part of the magic. And so this service account has the PAL association. So as long as I keep creating and delivering products and services into that resource group, I'm automatically going to get my PAL assignments. It's called MAU, or monthly active users, or monthly. It has to do with the amount of monthly usage that comes through. It's the acronym's MAU, but I can't remember the full correct name of it. And it essentially is the credits that you wind up getting for it. But this is like the easiest way of doing it. There's obviously many and obvious other ways of doing it, but this to me is like a very simple, surefire way of working smart and not working hard. There's probably even other better ways, but at least for the illustrations of this already long video, I hope to drive the point home with this. So now in the next segment, we're going to jump over back into our outline and presentation here, and we're going to show you this in the Power Platform, but we're going to use solutions to do that. So we'll be right back. All right, everybody, we are now in the Power Platform Admin Center, and we're doing the whole Dynamics 365, aka Power Platform, and a couple of prerequisite steps that we need to show you, because if we move to just the implementation piece, you may miss this early step and not get it to work and then be frustrated as to why that might be. All right, so what you're going to need to do is figure out what the production environment is. Okay, so this will either be you doing it or the customer may need to do it for you, depending on their comfort level and level of access that you have within the account. Now, I only have a small handful of environments here. I'm going to pick on this ISV lab environment to illustrate this. So one of the first things that I need to do is I need to go ahead and add that service account as a user in this environment, and I need to give it enough privileges so that it can export and install solutions, because that's really the main point. Now, I'm going to take a shortcut, or the easy way of doing it, which some might argue, if you're very security conscientious, that this is way too much power to give this service account and bad things could happen. And I won't argue with you on that. So there are custom roles that you can create, and as long as you give it just the right granular level permissions to import and export solutions, that's at least all you need for what I'm about to show you here. You may or may not need additional features or roles in that, but again, I'm going to use the generic easy way out here. We're just going to assign an admin role to this service account, okay? And for the most part, most of you are going to be completely okay with that, and for the most part, it is okay until it's not okay, and then of course, then you decide to circle back and tighten down or button down the hatches with security as steps and reasons in your emails to management about what you've done to mitigate the potential future risks. Or you can just do it right from the first and get it done. All right, anyway, so we need to go ahead and add that user again. So let's start off with the underscore. Yep, here it is right here. We're going to add. Once the user's added, then we're going to assign that cheapskate role. So that's down here, all the way at the bottom, system administrator. Again, overkill, but nonetheless enough to illustrate this. All right, so that being said, all of this is running through doing what it needs to do, and now I have a service demo account that has administrative rights and privileges. So now what I need to do is I need to close out of here, and I need to log off as me, and I need to sign in as that service account. So, oops, actually I signed out of the wrong account. Let me see if I can do it over here. So, yeah, sign in. We can use the service account. Probably going to MFA me again. And it is. All right, so now I am in as, I don't know why it's got my picture over there. Okay, so here I am. I've got the right service account. Wants my contact information. Yes, United States. Fine, this is fine. Okay. First time I'm logging in. Yes. All right. All's well and good. So that's set up. Now, if I come over here to the environmental list, I only have the default environment, and everybody has access to the default environment. But I also should have one additional environment, which is the ISV environment. Now, I just made myself, or not myself, I just made the service account the system administrator over there, and maybe it hasn't propagated, so I'm just going to pause and wait for this thing to kick in. Okay, everybody, so here we are back, and the propagation has unfortunately taken place way longer than I expected, but in any event, here we are. So I'm basically in the make.powerapps.com experience in solutions, and I'm going to switch over to the correct environment, and I'm still in solutions here. But now what I want to do is I want to import a solution that I previously exported. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here to choose Import Solution. I'm going to browse to the file on my disk. And this is a managed solution for some HRPTO stuff that we had going on. And this is all fictitious, by the way. And inside of this solution is a bunch of items. Okay, so a solution, if you're not familiar, essentially is a bucket that houses a bunch of apps. And I'll get back to that in just a second. So I do want to mention right here on screen, I have to select a connection. Now, I don't have one already created, so what I'm going to have to do is create a new connection, which will open a new tab, and it'll just use the authentication mechanism to create this connection. So I'll go through the steps of saying yes, I'll pick the service account, and it does its wonderful magic thing, and at this point I can close this tab, and now I can come back here, circle, refresh, and that connection that I just created will now show up in the drop-down list. So I'll now use that connection and continue to import the solution. Now, depending on the complexity of the solution, you may have a bunch of different connections. You may have other things that you might need to do, such as setting environment variables, things of that nature. So in any event, the point and the key takeaway is I'm logged in with the service account and I'm importing the solution. And again, a solution is a box that holds a bunch of different assets on the Power Platform. These could be things like environment variables, Power applications that come in a variety of flavors, model-driven and Canvas, and then of course you have the web side of stuff, which is now called Power Pages. You also have chatbots or PVA. You got all of the AI stuff, and now the new cards that's in preview. So all of these different types of things and assets, and of course let's not forget Dataverse and all of the tables and business logic behind there that you can include. And each one of these things is, you know, items that's inside of a solution. So while we're waiting for this to import, actually it looks like it just imported. So let's go into the solution so I can show you this. But I want you to take your eye and focus in on this owner column, and I'm going to expand it out. Notice the owner of this service account the owner of this solution and all of the items in the box. Okay, so if we come over here, we'll see type that we got some cloud flows, we have a bot entity, we have some topic that belongs to a chatbot, a Canvas app. We have a connection reference, some bot entities, anyway, a plethora of different things inside of this box. And the service account is the owner. And again, to harp on the second step of the PAL requirement, is you have to be an owner of the asset in order to get the credit. So first the PAL association, which is done to the service account, and then of course you need to be the owner. Solutions are a must, okay? Now I don't know that Microsoft's documentation stresses this enough, or they may allude to it, but I'm going to tell you as a best practice, if you don't use a solution, you're going to be in for a really long and arduous, painful journey with PAL. And the quick solution to the pain is use solutions, use solutions. And it's a best practice period, forget PAL, because it also allows you to move things from one environment to the other. It will help you promote. It's necessary for ALM, so it's just a good positive step all the way around. And I don't think PAL is any exception to the rule. It's just another item in the block to justify using solutions. So with all of that being said, please consider using solutions. Again, you don't have to, but if not, it's really, really painful if you don't. And in some cases, you'll have to export the app and re-import the app as the service account, and it just, again, it gets crazy. So I want to pop over to the default environment again, because I have this HRPTO solution in this environment. And I want you to notice the owner on this is actually me, David Soden. So this was an unmanaged solution that I exported as a managed solution. And as a result of that, wait, what's going on here? HRPTO. Ooh, something happened. probably don't have rights because I'm in here not as me, I'm in here as this, and I don't have rights to see certain things in this environment because I'm really just a stripped basic user. But in any event, if this, I could log out and the video's too long already, I don't want to do it, but in any event, the owner column would have my name in it, and it was because I was the owning entity of it because I was logged in at the time of creation. And the reason, again, that I'm the owner is because I imported the solution. So the key takeaway here is whomever imports the solution becomes the owner. So this is a problem, and it's a problem for a lot of you partners out there, because what will happen is you'll bundle up this wonderful solution, and you might be doing PAL or something, and you're not getting your MAL credits, or you're not getting your credits on this, and it's because their ALM process or their system administrator is using their service principal, their service account, their personal account, and whatever it is, it doesn't have a PAL association. And because they imported the solution, now they're the owner and they don't have the PAL association. So the fix is to make sure that you import the solution as the service account with the PAL association. And if they won't set up a service account at all for you, then find out if they'll minimally at least be willing to do a PAL association on the account that's being used in production. Now that's somewhat what I would consider potentially unethical, because that means that you're going to possibly receive credits for other additional work that's in their production environment that's not really yours. So I'll let you wrangle that one out yourselves with what the customer finds acceptable, but depending on what the customer does or doesn't let you have, an all or nothing scenario is not necessarily a bad thing, but like I just said, from an ethical standpoint, it's not your product, it's not your work product, and until Microsoft comes up with another way of maybe handling that, I'm not sure how to do it, but it's not really a Microsoft problem. It's more along the lines of, convincing your customer with some soft skills on, listen, this is the benefits of partners, this is what we do, this is the requirements of how you'll go ahead and we'll work with you. And this is, if you build it in on the front end, you'll have a much easier time than trying to swoop in towards the back end, say with a client that you've had for maybe 8, 10-ish years. And now you're trying to bring PAL into the account and asking them to do some different things or change their process. So again, this seems to be the least amount of effort that would be required, as opposed to, again, what Microsoft is suggesting, all of the users do that. To me, that's too much friction. That's just way too much work. But in any event, so this is hopefully everything that you need to understand how to use PAL, how to use it on the Power Platform, how to use it in Azure. And, if we just kind of went back to the admin center here, and I go under environments and circle back, I do want to take this because now we're in the bonus section of, essentially our presentation here. So I guess let me go over to the slide deck. And so now we're talking about bonus shell scripts. Now, I don't have this as a line item. I'm just throwing this in kind of ad hoc. But one of the things that I wanted to show you, as a matter of fact, I'm going to log out as this user. I'm going to log in with my admin user because I want to show you something. I told you about the administrator as the shortcut. I'm not going to go into actually creating one, but I'm going to at least get you far enough into where to go and what it might look like and what to look for if you were to explore using the more secure, granular version of just allowing the service account to have solutions. Because you may run across a customer that's just a stickler, and you're going to need to know this going in. So if you don't know it, you're going to struggle maybe a little bit if you're not familiar. All right, so back over here onto the environments, I'm going to go into the ISV lab, because this is what we were using before. And over here under access, I was using users. I want to hop up here to security roles, and this will give us a list of all of the security roles. Now, the most basic or watered down role that's out here is basic user. So I'm going to click on basic user to go into it, and I have myself in here obviously, and I'm going to click on edit, because what I'm going to show you is this is going to kick you over into the old school Dynamics 365 legacy interface that they're continuing to still pull over into the Power Platform, which is why you hear constantly Power Platform, aka D365, because it's really all one and the same type of system in the end. But this is where you formulate a role, and if you've never seen this area, it's very it's legacy interface, but it's also very overwhelming because there's a lot of information here. So the shortcut is the area of the the permissions within this role set, is a plethora. So there's some core things that's here. Okay, so if we look down the line items, all of these here, these are certain things that pertain to the core aspect of Dynamics 365 as it relates to Dataverse, as it relates to the functionality and things of that nature. And you have your simple CRUD operations, in addition to the ability to assign and share and other stuff like that. I'm going to let you explore. I'm not going to go through and explain all of this. I'm going to fast forward to the middle customized directory or customized tab. And down here, you should see something called Solution. Under Solution, I'm going to click on the word Solution. Did you see everything just light up over here? It was off before. So that's how it was. If I click on it again, it turns it on. So now this will give the basic user the ability to do solutioning, to create, update, delete, append. So if you go to the top, create, read, write, delete, append to, assign, share. So this is where you control that in a more granular level. So in a real world solution or scenario, I'm not going to save this. I'm going to jump out of here. What I would suggest to potentially do, at least as a starting point, go into the basic user, try to see if you can clone. Matter of fact, I haven't done this in a while. I don't even know if you can do it. Let's find basic user again. So basic user, can I clone this or copy? Yeah. So I can copy this, and I'm going to copy this over as a new one. So I might do PAL service account, right? But it's based on the basic user, and then I'm simply going to add in the additional pieces that I need for solutioning, if that's all I need, and that would suffice for that, right? So that's how you create a very customized, granular, basic, minimalistic type set for a role for this. But again, in this example, I just gave you the administrator side of things. Okay, now I also told you about a shell script that I have written that is also available to you. And if I go up here to GitHub, let me go over here to my repos, and we'll come over here to PAL. Microsoft PAL. All right, so here it is at the top, the URL is github/dtsoden/Microsoft PAL. It's also in the thumbnail for this video. One of the things I want to take and bring your attention to is this script. Okay, so what this script will do is it will allow you to, it will essentially give you the ability to create a service account known as a service principal. Not a service account, but an actual service principal. This is something that is done in Azure. And in addition to creating the service principal, it will also make sure that you additionally will do a PAL association in the script. So it does the PAL association and creates the service principal in all one fell swoop. Now, when you do that, now you have this whole new thing that you're ready to use. And if we come back over to here, instead of adding a user as the service account that we did, you're going to have to come down here and choose the S2S app. That's for the service principal. And you'll need to give them administrative rights, or you're going to assign that role, that custom role that I just showed you. And so those are the prerequisite steps for there. So you'll run this script, which will create the service principal and do the PAL association. So read the documentation, go through the notes, go through the, I got a help file that's built all into this, so please go ahead and use it. I'm not supporting this, so I'm more than happy to answer a question here and there, but if it gets repetitious and essentially it winds up turning into an implementation, I can't do that level of help and support on that. But everything's well documented. Go ahead and read all of this. Some of this is using some pre-existing Microsoft documentation that I've changed out a little bit. And also added some additional graphic and stuff like that. But in any event, all of this is up here ready for you to use. I hope you have a very successful PAL implementation with Microsoft and your customers. And as always, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate y'all. Have a great day. Bye.